How you doing? I'm Tom Nyback. This is 365 Days Towards Racial Change, day 310 on tap. And this is actually take two. I was really on a roll. Had a lot of good subjects rolling off. And I hit the button on this recorder and boom, it just truncated everything. So I got to start over again. It's no problem. Maybe I can clarify my thought. How you doing, white folks? Do you understand, do you realize, right, that you are the recipients of so much struggle, toil, you've inherited so much favor and whatnot created by your forefathers, and how do you feel about that? I wonder what that would be like to have been born into the group that gets so much favor and resources, access to wealth and whatnot, and other groups struggle or have to go a little extra just to be and participate in the same way as myself, right? Our forefathers, politically and as far as the Constitution, that they did some interesting things early on in the nation. One of them being, defining black people specifically as 3/5 of a human being. Black people are not even fully human, right? You get five. You need five black people together for three valid votes or valid representations of black people, right? You get 50 black people together, then you've only got 30, numerically 30, right? If you're not good with fractions, just trust what I'm saying. All right, you get 500 black people together, and some of these plantations had hundreds of slaves. And this was important because this 3/5 thing, it was about voting power, political power, and stuff like that. And that was the compromise for the bodies of black slaves. Now, the black slave didn't have the voting right. It was the population represented power of the given to white slave masters. The slave master took those votes, aggregated them, and had X amount of power. So one white man with 500 black slaves actually had 301 votes, the political potential in the nation at one time. You got to read up on the Missouri Compromise, 1787, James Madison notes, and put all that stuff together, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The point is, white folks have always been able to move along in the landscape because America is created by European whites, created for human, European whites, and continues to support that, even in the midst of Revolutionary War and whatnot and stuff, and separating from the monarchy on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. It's still, America's still the ground of white privilege as a nation. And black folks, if you're listening to this, how do you feel about that? I mean, yeah, we go in and out. We appear to be free, but are we self-determining? That's the thing. We need to take this thing to another level. It's not just that we're no longer overtly whipped, overtly um, uh, talked to with pejorative words and negative ways. right? And we're not publicly, for the most part, sustaining a whole lot of criticisms and whatnot, like that kind of in-your-face racism has essentially gone underground. Oh, but are you self-determining? Do you move and live and breathe as your privileged white counterparts? I think you need to take some self-assessment upon yourself and see about that. One area is you need to think about your finances and how um, early on, as early as you can, you need to have financial conversations. You need to start being very, very circumspect on how you are spending your resources, what you're doing with your resources. Lately, I've been thinking about and putting into my mind, how do I get me a piece of land that then I can rent out and have someone or a company, a group be beholden to me and be that income and support that space and that land. I mean, because that's how white people do it. That's how the power structure in America does it and succeeds. I'm living in a pretty nice place now, but by May I have to be making decisions to move. Well, it's not like it'd be nice, but I don't think I'm going to be moving to a place where I get a mortgage and all that stuff, right? Because I've got financial wreckage and all these things that the black community does not, uh, or at least in my case, was not aggressive. It needs to be aggressive in educating me about some of these issues. That would have been nice to plant the seed and whatnot 30, 40 years ago. Would have been real nice. But that's okay, it's a learning experience about how I need to be, gather the time now. The past, it's already behind me. It's okay. Now I'm educated and can make better decisions. Finances, get your finances in order. Yeah. I muse a lot. The country's just gone through, well, the country's going to be recovering from our recent political upheavals with impeachment and all that for a long time to go. A lot of administrations want to get some backlash and vindictiveness, and you can see white people with privileged power fighting like this. That's amazing. Everybody's a billionaire, millionaire, trillionaire, and whatnot, and they can still find a reason to be at each other's throat. But I was musing about our president. He doesn't believe his own intelligence as a security people. He's buddies with uh, dictators on the planet. I mean, he appears sometimes to be a transparent Manchurian candidate. If you're not familiar with Manchurian Candidate, there's been a couple of sci-fi flicks about it. A nice movie. Denzel Washington was in a movie about it where they put kind of this sleeper mole into some top area government, and this individual, is their agenda is to manipulate, coerce, and move power around in such a way as to benefit some outside group or country, right? They call it a Manchurian candidate, right? I don't know if I go that far on our present administration and things like that, but there's a lot of challenging behavior going on, and I think that's what excited one side of the aisle a whole lot, is that the individual was just so overt, charismatic with an agenda that was just way too far outside the norm for everything. Possible Manchurian candidate, who knows? Fortunately, I'm just this little guy making benign videos that probably got a small audience. Thank you, but we're not like 300,000 folks with big communities changing things politically. That'd be nice. But I like a nice, intimate deal anyway. So please stay tuned in. I'm not knocking the small numbers of racial change by any degree. I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claud Anderson. He informs a lot of what we do. Today we are in our last part 3 of the desegregation of public schools and what that meant and means for Black people in the long term, what integration is, and the impact of integration. And we're coming out of this book today, again, Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power, and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com and here on YouTube. Check out hashtag #US2 symbol behind me. You'll find Black women supporting one another, having their resources, gathering together. There are issues, differences between women and men on some issues. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of Black Facebook experience. If you have an entrepreneurial spirit, business mind, check out Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School, theblackbusinessschool.com. And we'll get back to this, maybe a summary day or something before we end our 365 Uncle Tom's Cabin fictional life of slave life in America. And I was just using a couple of videos ago that slave life in America is never good. All, slave life, books, media, it's all bad. It's never some joyous event that slavery is going on in America. And that's good. That's right. That's real. But you think about that. It's the one, resource for fiction that's always negative, and people are left disadvantaged and hurting. All right, today we're going to finish up part 3 of the desegregation of public schools. We're talking about integration, right? The question is, out of Dr. Anderson's Black History Reader, how was the 1954 school desegregation lawsuit switched from unequal funding to social integration? Quick snapshot is Black schools were complaining they weren't getting proper funding from the government and a little lip service. You notice what, you always have to go to the government and they have to deliberate and they, to appear to be working or something. I don't know what, like, oh, we have to have a debate to give schools equal funding, right? The government does that with everything, right? They always have to have this long thing so people can have a job, I guess. They wouldn't want me to have government because I'd get rid of a lot of this excess, all these processes and all this stuff. We need to, is this the right thing to do? Then let's do it. What's bureaucracy anyway? But that was the problem. That was the fundamental issue that came to a head in out of the blue. NAACP rises up. Whether they were using it as another opportunity, as they were getting their growth growing to be a national entity for colored people, and then this event, this problem in America was just another stepping stone to broaden the visibility of the NAACP. Who knows that? I mean, that happened, right? But anyway, the NAACP came in and said, "Well, let's reevaluate equal funding, and instead, let's integrate." And we talked recently, the integration was taking blacks out of here, put them over there. We talked about mental, social conditioning, historical context of this integration idea that just went forward. We found out that blacks and whites were totally okay with segregation, separation, right? With just blacks needed the resources. The illustration I gave is like if I have a broken leg, because the black people are compromised, challenged, disadvantaged. All they need is the resources with which to rise up and be competitive and work within America's landscape equally competitively. Like if I broke my leg, yeah, initially maybe I'll need a little help, have a few doors open, carry me here and there. But if 2, 3, 5 years down the road I'm still jammed up, and you come back and you see people still, you know, um, coming at me and helping me for a simple broken leg, then something's wrong in the picture. I should be standing by that time, maybe even running by then. And so there's a lot of issues with integration. The integration keeps me weak, keeps me dependent, keeps me, um, you know, with my hat in my hand and my hand out, waiting for the able-bodied folks to allow me to participate. That's what integration did. I might revisit that before we take our outro today. Black folks missed the opportunity to become overtly great, participate in America's greatness by being dependent, by finding resources elsewhere. Educational infrastructure in the black community was dismantled. People were out of jobs. All of that, the peripheral resources, say paper, building maintenance, the buildings themselves, all these things were destroyed in this kind of educational holocaust in the black community. Um, it's another blacks as a group making another poor decision where we're collectively good for that. I don't know if it's from meritorious manumission, if it's some cultural thing where has slavery put such an indelible mark on the mind of black folks that we can't uh, collectively make the right decision, right? And I recognize that we're down the road. There's some momentum, and it'd be hard to really extract ourselves and turn it around, because at every point, you're going to find other groups and white people saying, "Oh, look at the black folks are, you know, they're going backwards, and they're trying to be separate and all this stuff, and it's not good, right?" But it's exactly what the Arabs do. It's what the Asian cultures do. Hispanics have their own spaces and whatnot, languages, a lot of stuff, right? Uh, but the minute black folks start talking the language of separating and strengthening themselves, there's pushback, blowback. You don't see that with any other group out there in America. This integration thing, put had blacks embracing, you know, coming to white spaces, white success, right? Blacks just can't get it together. We can't have our own and stuff. Well, we need white help to help us stand, you know. But Dr. Anderson points out really at the end of that question, we are uninvited guests when we integrated. The power group did not want us, didn't want to hate that, it wasn't like some intellectual decision that was okay with both communities. They needed a National Guard to make this thing work, you know. And after some of um, the vitriol of this thing died down, the military was able to kind of go home, but still the black kids in these hostile white spaces, had to navigate and had to step up. Years ago, Oprah Winfrey had an episode about that where she had some of these early black students confront some of the white kids in these schools. Yeah, and it's an emotional time. These black kids were abused. They were uh, really black folks, and this comes a lot from slavery too, standing back, watching their future resource be manipulated in any old kind of way. What a um, sad move that communities on both sides made with this integration idea. Blacks were uninvited guests in those white spaces. Um, Dr. Anderson is quick too. He says, other groups don't integrate, and they're doing just fine. They grow. They have holidays, their language, their spaces, land, commerce, their businesses, on and on. I live in a city where downtown, um, it's a Japanese, have almost a whole block of downtown Denver. Their space, you got international market, Buddhist temple, and stuff like that, right? Living spaces right there, and I mean, sure they interact and stuff like that, but that group owns the space and controls that space, right? You don't see black people with a whole block and in a metropolitan city controlling that. If you can name one, I'd like to hear of it and even go there, right? A downtown city. Uninvited guest, we were, right? Remember the direction of integration? It's almost like a electrical circuit, right? One charge goes to another charge. That's how they think of it in physics. And the black folks left their space and go over here to white power and white control. That's always integration. And the difference in experience, right, for the children, right? The black children are learning about slavery, being in a hostile environment. I mean, you're talking emotional, mental. This thing is on so many levels such a detriment to black um, life that, you know, it's even hard to put into words. Black children have a disconnect when they go travel. White folks have the continuity. They're staying in their space, education, reinforcing pride, on and on. Benefits for white folks. School was is it's a place of indoctrination. It's a place of conditioning for what is what's really kind of going on in the world, right? And I know this. It didn't happen to me. Like when I learned about slavery as a little kid in school, that I come home and I get debriefed, right? My parents were just both working and going through stuff where they had to. They didn't. There was never that kind of feedback on all that. You know, um, very sad. This 1954 Brown v. Board Education, created that culture of guest. Black people are guests in white spaces, in white power. Um, and whites just perpetuated the paradigm, allowed inferiority, affirmed their role, affirmed the black role in America, and just left it right at that, just controlled that, massaged it, and left it up to black people to kind of go on their own to find some affirmation, some power in and on the American landscape. Guests, guests, the black people are guests in white spaces as business, communities, institutions, right? Um, well, we can't speak or talk too loud. The one plantation I was in at a logistics, hauling boxes, delivering home goods and stuff. But it's a space. It was a space where I dare not raise my voice, challenge power, and stuff like that. That was uh, a big no in um, in that white space. No, black men don't do that. Even as right as I can be, even as I'm trying to help and be a blessing, right? This integrated space is this white people rise up and have access to wealth and resources. NAACP's involvement back then was just ruinous. And you say, well, people live well. Kamala Harris did well, and we got a bunch of people did well through integration and whatnot. But it's just an utter failure to black people at at large, to the whole community, right? I'm tired of these, politicians, groups on both sides of an issue. They have these. They want to shout about these successes here and there, but those are only the tips of the iceberg. So many others in their group have fallen so far behind that minuscule ideal, or that minor minority, and that's white, black, Hispanic. You pick any group. It's this minor minority, and then we want to politicize it, weaponize uh, these uh, kinds of success as though it's the norm. It's not. It's not. Well, like for every 10 successful people in a group, how many more are struggling? I bet you that number is exponentially higher than the handful of 5, 10 people that are doing well out of a group. When you got hundreds and thousands below the poverty line, sleeping on the street, where our homeless population is exploding. America is so hypocritical. We had a middle class, well, that shrank. We've always had the poor, but now we've got the homeless. We're creating a whole super underclass in America. And people want to say we're doing so well. Integration is one aspect of the problem. Again, I'll say, if I had a broken leg, if I'm a disadvantaged, physically challenged person, yeah, initially with the ability to get better, then yeah, initially I'm going to need some help. After that, I need to be left alone, stand on my own, be competitive without anyone putting roadblocks and impediments in my way. Integration is bad. Integration is bad. And I hope black people find a way, legitimate way to come around, turn it around a little bit. I'm Thomas Nyback. That's day 310 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. I will see you again soon. Let's see what we can get into for our next subject.